So you are all at the free webinar, Gamer Psychology, Designing Hit Video Games. And this webinar today is being brought to you by Situated Research, which is a research usability company in Chicago, Illinois. The agenda for today is, first of all, we're going to discuss how to differentiate between quality assurance, or QA, from usability research. We're also going to talk about problems with starting usability research at the end of the development life cycle as opposed to the beginning. We'll also talk about modeling gamer psychology and gamer challenges that come up during game design. We'll also discuss designing engagement and motivating players through goals and failures. And lastly, we're going to touch on the RITE method. Some gaming companies still use it. Some think it's old school. We're going to touch upon it, talk about the problems with standard usability tests such as the RITE method. So who should be attending today? Our audience should be consisting of people within the gaming industry. So whether you're a developer, you're in the QA department, you're the owner of a gaming company, whomever you are, you must be involved within the gaming industry. That's today's topic. We have a lot of people attending today. A lot of people stated that they are attending the Gamers Developers Conference in San Francisco next week, which we're really excited about, GDC 2012. So that's why we're doing today's webinar today, to kind of get that exposure out there about our company and what we do, so that we can set up some meetings while we're there as well. Anyone attending today should be interested in making games for their users, and that is their main purpose. Anyone who's interested in making the next big hit game should be attending today. And anyone who works for a company that doesn't currently utilize UX should be attending today. So I want to go into very quickly Situated Research, which is my company here in Chicago. I'm the co-founder along with Dr. Sherritt, who is our president. And here at Situated Research, we have 3 different teams. And what each team does is they all focus on the overall user experience. So our first team is our video game team, where we actually have video game companies come to us with prototypes to their games, or they come to us at the end of the development cycle, which we'll talk about today, the pros and cons to doing that. And basically what we do is we do usability research and testing. So we actually bring users into an environment where they're comfortable, so a living room setting where we set up video cameras that are hidden and they have microphones attached to them and they sign disclosures. However, we get them in their natural environment, so they're not going to act differently than they would if they were sitting in their own living room playing the video game. And that gets us really into the analysis of the videotapes that we take. We take over 20 hours of videotape of them playing a game, and we get many different things from that videotape, which we're going to go through today. Then we have our software and product team, and basically what that team does is any software company, like we work with Autodesk and Cisco, just to name a few, they come to us with a new prototype for a piece of software or an existing piece of software that has already gone out on the market that they want to compare with a competitor and write an article about, or whatever the case may be. So we can do competitive analysis as well. And then companies that make products. Most recently, we've been working with some car companies with their navigation systems and their interfaces inside the car. So those companies come to us. So that's that team where we actually have users come in and test those pieces of software and products. And then we have our web design and social media, our web design and internet team. And basically what that consists of is we design, redesign, or help a current company with their IT team to make their website more user-friendly. And we also have the internet part of that team, which is based on social media. So once we help them to get their branding and marketing out there on their website and to make their website more user-friendly, we then have a whole social media campaign that we do to get the word out, to spread the word. So those are our 3 divisions. So here at Situated Research, we are focused on the future of usability and the future of usability research and testing. Some video game companies right now have usability teams. And we're going to talk about that in a few slides later on. And so we go to them and we say, oh, well, we do usability research and testing. We have a PhD on staff, Dr. Sherritt, who specializes in all these different areas. He has an interdisciplinary degree in all of these different areas. And we apply this to the research that we do. And they say, okay, well, that's great. You know, you're academic-y. Well, we don't really need you. We have a usability team. No, that's not what we do. We're not like your usability team. We are the future of usability. Traditionally, usability has played off of cognitive psychology. And now we're getting into interactive marketing, behavioral psychology, interaction analysis, participatory design, all of these different areas that Dr. Sherritt got his PhD in. And we encompass all of these areas into the research that we do. So we're looking at the overall user experience. We're just not looking for certain pieces within the video game design or user interface or the user's behavior. We're looking at all of these different areas with an unbiased approach because we're outsiders looking in. So this is the future of usability because if you were to hire one staff member for each of these different areas, first of all, it would be very costly. And second, those people wouldn't know how to marry all of these ideas together into research, combine them all, know what to look for within the videotape, and the analysis that we do here at Situated Research that Dr. Sherritt does for us. So that's what makes us unique. We are the only usability company in the world, and you can verify this, that has a PhD on staff with an interdisciplinary degree in all of these areas that we applied to all of our research. So you're getting good, thick research and analysis and good information to go back with to make your video game better. And we're going to get into that a few slides later on. Situated Research started in 2008. And it started right after Dr. Sherritt got his PhD, which was in May of 2008. And we've been going ever since. We did 1 year's worth of marketing research for our business plan and found out, that's how we found out that we were the only company that did usability research with a PhD on staff that had all of this expertise and knowledge and knew how to marry it all together. So we do not design games. Some people get kind of confused. We do not design games, but we do assist gaming companies to make the next hit video game. We're all huge gamers here at Situated Research. We all, you know, come over to the office and play video games all the time. Any new releases, we get copies of those games right away. And we get to test them and we get to try them out and then we write reviews on them. So if you are a gaming company, small or huge, it doesn't matter, and you have a game that's going to be coming out and you want us to write a review on it, let us know. Send us a copy and we'd be more than happy to do that. So I mentioned interaction design, and I also mentioned that some people look at our company, see Dr. Sherritt's background, and they say, well, they've got all these theories incorporated within their research, and they're kind of academics. You got a PhD on staff who does research, and they're really academics. They're not really in the gaming industry, yada, yada. We get this all the time. Dr. Sherritt, what he did his PhD on was he actually took educational video games. So he took Civilization 4 and brought it into a game, so Sid Meier's popular game, brought it into a social studies class where they took what they learned in their classroom and in their textbooks and applied it to the gameplay. So not only was Dr. Sherritt looking at the gameplay and the interaction between how they took what they learned in the classroom and applied it to the game, so engagement. They also, he also looked at communication and interaction between two players. He had two players playing together, so partnering up. So he looked at communication theory. He also looked at the overall user experience of the game and how that came into play with the user and how they played the game and how they interacted with the game and how they engaged. And all of that information was then put into his dissertation, and he wrote findings on that. He just didn't do it on Civilization 4. He did on Roller Coaster Tycoon as well, and also Making History. And these were all games like the Roller Coaster Tycoon game he took into a marketing class, high school marketing class, and they took what they learned in the classroom and applied it to the game. So you can apply all of these theories, and even though it sounds a little academic-y, you can apply it to game design. He actually worked a little bit after GDC 2 years ago. We actually worked with Sid Meier a little bit, talked with him after his keynote at GDC, and we were actually involved with some of his work that he was doing the next couple of years. So just a little bit, but we interacted with him. We learned a lot from him, so that was very interesting to do that. So all of these different areas are encompassed in our interaction design, and we apply all of these areas into our research as well. So why did we start situated research? Some people ask that. Well, it is based off of my husband's PhD. However, we attended the Meaningful Play Conference in Michigan State in 2008, where Dr. Sherritt was the best paper presenter. He had a best paper that he wrote, and he was presenting there. And we were at the keynote. Richard Hillman from EA was the keynote, and he was talking about SPORE. That was right when SPORE came out. And he said that they hired a company in San Francisco to help them with usability research and testing on the game to make it better. And he said that they paid over $1 million for this research, and all they got, they didn't get any transcripts of the video that was taken. They only received screenshots where in the gameplay, in the game interface, that there were problems. So basically, wherever there were glitches within the game, this company reported back to EA, gave them screenshots, no transcripts, and said, okay, well, here's a problem, pointed it out to them, but didn't tell them how to fix it. And all they looked for was glitches within gameplay. And they got paid over $1 million to do this research. Dr. Sherry and I were sitting at one of the tables up front, and we looked at each other and we were like, whoa, these people got paid a lot of money, and this is all they supplied to them. This is pretty sad, and obviously EA, during the keynote, we got that jive that they weren't very happy with what they got, and as a result, SPORE was a hit with people who had played SPORE before. However, as far as new users went, new players went, they really didn't get that following, and so that's because the usability research and testing that was done didn't look at the whole overall user experience. So we actually talked with Richard Hillman afterwards and told him about Dr. Sherritt's PhD, and he actually talked to us and said, why don't you guys start your own usability company? Sounds like you guys are onto something. You guys are unique. You got a niche. You guys should go for it. So that's what we did, and that's what inspired us. So not only Dr. Sherritt's background, but the research that he did in the classroom environment, looking at collaboration, game design, gameplay, and usability, and then talking with Richard Hillman, just put it all together. So currently we do have some partnerships with many gaming companies, and we have contracts that are pending. As you know, within the gaming industry, and especially with us not being on site, there's a lot of confidentiality clauses and contracts that we need to sign and all of that, so those are going into those stages. But as far as situated research goes, when we started in 2008, we actually started with the web design and internet team because that was right when the economy tanked. So we knew that gaming companies and software companies didn't have the funds to fund our projects. So we did the website and internet team got started in 2008, 2009, 2010, and at the end of 2010 and all of 2011, and now we are totally into the gaming industry. We've got contracts going. We're working with some companies on their projects right now. We've helped some smaller companies get going, get started, get well known. So if you want to learn more about that, I'll tell you how to do that at the very end of today's session. So some people say, well, what is situated research? What does the name situated research mean? And what it is we do in situ or user experience research. So why in situ? We study users in their natural settings. So that way they're not acting differently. They don't have a camera in their face. They're not hooked up to probes to their head to look at brain waves or anything like that. We want them in their natural setting. We want to catch them playing the game as they naturally would in their own living room with a friend. You know, eating chips and salsa and beer and having fun and interacting. That's what we want to see, because we want to see how they're actually going to be playing your game at home. That tells us a lot. So although we do have a lab setup, we don't necessarily call it a lab because it's a living room. We have couches, the big flat screen TV. We've got, you know, we provide food. The cameras are hidden. Of course, they sign waivers beforehand. And they are hooked up to microphones, but they act naturally like they would in their own natural setting. So why UX? We incorporate user research into the design process so that you're ensured that your users' needs are met. So this allows the users to work productively, efficiently, and happily. So now we're going to discuss the difference between quality assurance versus usability research. And before we get into this, Situated research is not saying don't do QA. QA is a very huge part, obviously, of game design and putting out a hit video game, and is part of it. But don't forget about usability research is what we're trying to say here. And then some companies confuse the two, and they think that they're one and the same, and they're not. So hopefully we'll be able to establish why that is. The history of game design is totally out the window. Traditional way of doing it is out. We have to think about the user, not at the end of the developing process, but all throughout the development process, from brainstorming all the way down. The first real model for developing video games was the waterfall design, and it's not really used anymore. And the reason for that is because it's like a trickle-down effect. And if you have to go back in a step, it's very hard to do that. And if you do, it sets everything back. And then also with this design, there's no room for prototyping at all. So what is QA testing? QA testing is usually performed once a prototype is completed because they have to have something to test. So that is totally different than with us with usability research, where we want to be in at the very beginning of the project. And we'll talk about why that is in a moment. Usually with QA testing, there's focus groups, and testing is done in the lab if it's done at all. So I like to put up this photo of the blind men and the elephant. And the reason for this is all these men are blind, and they're feeling the elephant, and they've never seen an elephant before because they're blind. And they're trying to describe to the man on top exactly what's in front of them. And everyone has a different idea of what's in front of them, what they're feeling, what they're touching. And so this is the same thing with game design. Everybody who's involved within game design has a different perspective, a different idea of what the game should be like, what it should be, what it should do for users, how the gameplay should be, et cetera, et cetera. So you have all these people involved in the process. So yes, you have to have certain steps within game development, but when it comes to quality assurance and usability testing, the limited amount that you have involved, the better. The difference between, we're going to talk now about the difference between quality assurance and usability research. Quality assurance, these people make sure that the video game works, bottom line. It literally means that it functions and works correctly. So these people are not trained in usability. They don't have degrees that pertain to usability. Their main focus is not the user experience. Okay? It's to find glitches. It's to make sure the game works properly, make sure the game doesn't freeze, gameplay doesn't change up, things aren't missing within the gameplay, the storyline, et cetera, et cetera. Usability, these people are more focused on the overall user experience. So the behavior of the user as they play the video game is very, very important to them, and they focus on that. So a good video game company, a good team that's developing good hit games should use both. So again, we're not saying get rid of quality assurance because you need it. We're saying incorporate both in the design and development process of your games. So just as an example, we found this job description last year on Blizzard's website for a quality assurance tester. just so that we could point out and say, this is what people are looking for, and this has nothing to do with the overall user experience at all. So a quality assurance tester, usually the requirements are, and this is directly from their website, passion for games. Well, I would hope that that would, be something that you would want to have in a person who was going to be working for a gaming company. A high level of motivation, well, that's always good. The willingness to work long and odd hours, that's a kind of given in the gaming industry. The ability to follow direction, good communication skills, and strong work ethic. Okay. The job duties include database entry, working in a team, good at finding bugs, and good at describing those bugs. Okay. So this was a job description from Blizzard. Seems kind of basic to me, just being an outsider looking in. What's wrong with this? Well, that was the whole job description, by the way. What's wrong with this is that no degree is needed. Okay, it doesn't even ask for a high school diploma. No research skills are needed at all. So that tells you right off the bat that this quality assurance position, they do not focus on research at all. Most quality assurance testers or game testers have a high school diploma only. So they are only hired because they love games. Usually, quality assurance uses focus groups. And so usually they have set testers that they work with. Users know that they're being tested. Of course, in our setting as well, they know that they are being tested. Actually, I don't want to say that because they are not being tested. They are testing the game. That's always a misconception as well. Oh, well, we test our users. We're not testing our users. What we are doing is we are having our users test the game. So we give them set tasks that are laid out, and we're not, normally with focus groups, they are given set tasks as well, but they're not looking at everything. They're not looking at motivation. They're not looking at problems within the storyline. They're not looking at other issues that would come up within normal gameplay. And normal gameplay is defined as games played in a natural environment without outside influences or disturbances. Some gaming companies actually have little probes connected to their heads to measure brain waves. I've seen this in academic settings as well. Some universities are getting into game design, and they feel that this helps with game design. It doesn't. And we have research to back that up if you're interested in that. But we want them to act as if they're sitting in their living room and playing a video game with a friend. Here's another example of a software engineer. This is the quality assurance department. And the description is that they have to be able to debug, do automated testing, data analysis, and provide the highest standards for software. The requirements are they have to know C and C++. Here they have to have a computer science degree or computer engineering degree, so a bachelor's or a master's. The problem with this is that they only know how to analyze data, if they know that at all. No studies have been run by them, and they do not know other methods or studies to use. The other requirement was that they had to be able to multitask and be goal-driven. In usability research, here at Situated Research, what we do is we conduct research in their natural environment. So yes, they sign a waiver, they know they're being videotaped, they know that their voice is being recorded. However, the video is being done on the back end, so there's videos playing or videotapes recording them in the back and in the front, and they're hidden. Their microphones are attached to their shirts, and that's it. So they might be aware of it at the very beginning of the videotaping, but after that, they act like they're in their natural environment, hanging out with a friend, and we actually have friends come in. That's how we do our testing. We say, okay, you want to be a tester, you have to bring in a friend that you normally game with. And so we do it that way. That way, they're not working with a stranger. They are not acting like they're being recorded, and we get them in their natural environment. We are videotaping them, but again, that's behind the wall, so the cameras are not visible. And we do research We're using activity theory. We're looking for relationships within gameplay. We also use ethnomethodology, so we come in with an open-ended research approach. We're not an employee of yours, so we don't have a biased reasoning for doing this research. We're not looking for a certain spot within the gameplay that we need to fix or that someone on our team feels that we need to fix. We're looking at the whole game. And we use grounded theory, which is a method for finding patterns within the video clips that we choose. We also use emergent behavioral patterns, and we use measuring method, which is unique to situated research. And we watch the video, and Dr. Sherritt analyzes it and analyzes it and analyzes it. We have transcriptionists that transcribe the hours of videotape. We also use Jeffersonian notation. That's just notation within the transcript. If someone raises their voice, they laugh, they gesture, they pause in their speech, and that helps with the communication part of it, the engagement part of it, the interaction part of the analysis that we do. So let's talk now about problems starting usability research at the end of the development life cycle. Some gaming companies have come to us and said, we totally get what you guys do. We acknowledge what you do. We feel that it's important, and we want to bring you in once we have the game developed. Well, here's a problem with that. It's great that they've acknowledged that they need usability research and that they need situated research to step in and help them. That's great. But let's look at the problems of coming in at the end. The reason why we want to come in at the beginning is, first, we must look at what gaming companies are looking for now. So currently they're looking for glitches within code, glitches within gameplay, interface issues, storyline concerns, and companies are providing clips of glitches within the gameplay, which is what we talked about earlier where Richard Hillman was doing this keynote at the gaming conference in Michigan. So what should they be looking for? What's important? Quality assurance, you're looking at the game interface, font sizes, readability of the storyline. For users, you're looking at their goals, function and mood, motivation. The future of usability, you want to look at engagement, communication, how they're learning, if they are learning anything, and a whole bunch of other items that we look at. So why do we want to come in at the beginning? We want to be a part of the project from the beginning to end. Because if we find concerns with the game in the early stages, that will save you money. That will save you tons of money. It'll save you tons of time. And it'll make the game better. We give the gaming company a bigger return on investment, and it makes the game a bestseller. It makes it better because we're looking at the overall user experience, not just certain sections of the gameplay. So the problems with waiting, so some gaming companies say, okay, I totally get it. Come in at the end when we're all done. And we tell them, you know, the reasons why we don't want to do that, and they still decide, okay, I want you guys to come in at the end. Here are the problems. You don't defer user testing until you have a fully implemented design. If you do, it will be impossible to fix a vast majority of the critical usability problems that the test uncovers. So many of these problems are likely to be structural, and fixing them will require major re-architecting of the game. That's costly and timely. So the only way to a high-quality user experience is to start user testing early in the design process and to keep testing every step of the way, because cost is a huge, huge concern. The amount of money it costs to develop a game is astronomical, and you want to get your return on investment, so why make it any more costly? Involve usability research and testing at the beginning. So again, it's time-consuming for the whole team that's working on the game. And if you wait until the end, the user's needs were lost along the way. You weren't thinking about them throughout the whole development process. You're just thinking about them at the end, if at all. And Spore was a perfect example of that. So now we're going to discuss gamer psychology and game challenges. We're actually going to get into the heads of the gamers. So currently gaming companies, they're missing the most important part of game design, and that's the end user's wants and needs. Sid Meier went through this in his keynote, at GDC a couple years back, and he went into gamer psychology, and we actually did a whole webinar on it where we had him attend and actually speak during our webinar, and the recording can be found on our webinars recordings page, where he talked again about the gamer psychology. Currently, gaming companies also are not looking at the psychology behind the user and the overall gameplay. So what's the psychology of players? Gameplay really is a psychological experience. My degree is in behavioral psychology, and Dr. Sherritt in his interdisciplinary PhD program also looked at behavioral psychology. And if you think about it, it's very, very important to gameplay and to gamers. You have to understand how your gamer thinks in order to develop the next hit video game. You have to know that the whole gaming experience is all in your gamer's head. Ego plays a big role. Paranoia, delusion, self-destructive behavior, all of these things play into the user's behavior when they play a video game. So what do players want? Recently we conducted a survey where we actually had a bunch of people fill out the survey, and what we wanted to know was, what are you looking for when you play a game? And it was for one day only. We had about 600 people participate, and we learned what keeps players playing your games. And this is what we found. The number one thing was that they get to escape reality. A lot of people said, I get to enter a fantasy world that I otherwise wouldn't be in. I get to be a warrior. I get to be an athlete. I get to do all of these cool things within a game environment. So after work, I get to forget all of that, and I get to just escape. The next thing was reward systems. They think that's really, really cool when they get a bunch of rewards, coins, one-ups, any kind of armor that will help them to defeat a dragon at the end of the game. All these different reward systems keep them going. Of course, graphics, a good-looking game comes into play. If it looks old school, they say, eh. If it's got good graphics, and the more realistic it is, the better. The storyline's good. And one thing that came up with the storyline item was that they do not like when they have to be taken through the process at the beginning of the game where the storyline takes over and they can't skip through it. Even though the game developers, you have to go through the storyline to get immersed and get the full effect of the game, some of the gamers were like, you know what, I just want to get into the game and start playing. So that was one thing. So just a tip for those folks out there, if your storylines are a problem. They also said working with the controllers was cool. They said, especially the Wii controller, how interactive it is. They really liked that. They also liked that they were able to communicate with others online and all over the U.S. and internationally. Xbox Live was huge. Point here that they got to talk to other people. They got to play games with other people around the world. They thought that that was really cool, and then actually talk to them as well. They said becoming something you can't in real life, like an athlete or a warrior. They also thought it was cool that they could compete against each other. Especially with Xbox Live, you can be at home on your Xbox and your friend could be at their house and you can play against each other. So they thought that that was really neat. Being able to work out while having fun using Wii Fit, they thought was ingenious. They loved it. And then not being limited when playing games. They're just not limited. The expectations are huge. What they can do is beyond what they can do in real life. But the one thing that we found, besides escaping reality, was that some people, actually a lot of people, almost 500 of the 600 that we had take the survey, said killing people and objects and not going to jail is the coolest thing. So they're thinking about Grand Theft Auto and games like that. Yeah, they're violent games, and but adults who have a well-rounded life and think it's cool to go out and do that within the gameplay, and get cheat codes and get helicopters and have them arrive in the middle of the street while cops are shooting at you is adventurous to them, and they like that. So that was the second thing that was the top reason why people keep playing your games. So players believe that they are good. They believe that they are the best players out there. When they buy a video game, they're like, I'm buying this because I'm good and I want to prove it. And this was confirmed in Sid Meier's keynote as well. He said that, players believe that they're good all the time. And do they play like a good character all the time? No. Like the cheats I just talked about in Grand Theft Auto, the helicopter cheat, shooting people, innocent bystanders, do that with no repercussions, and why is that? Because it's fun, and you can't do it in real life. And if you do, you go to jail. So there's, nothing's going to happen to you. So morals are compromised sometimes within gameplay. We also talked with gamers and talked with them about their gamer psychology and talked about winning and losing. And users said we want to win all the time. In Sid Meier's keynote in 2010 at GDC, he said it best with Civ 4 or with Civ 5. He said that the players that they tested all said, I want to win all the time. I don't want to lose, and that's what we all want to do. So the game has to kind of play into that. Can't be easy. There has to be a balance. So you have to look at that also when you do your usability research. You also have to look at reward versus punishment. You don't want to be punishing the player all the time and making them aggravated and making the levels too difficult. Otherwise, the players are not going to win. And so Sid Meier said, okay, well, what percentage of the time do players want to win? It's 100%. And if they don't, what happens? They get angry. They get frustrated. And guess what? Overall, the number one biggest thing is they stop playing the game for good. I had a friend over last night who just bought a new video game that just came out as a snowboarding game. And he just got back from a trip to Tahoe where he just learned how to snowboard, so he took this trip. And he had a great, fantastic time, and he came home, and the snowboarding game came out, and he bought it, and he was playing it at our house last night. And the first couple of minutes was a tutorial. So it was kind of the storyline, and then it had a tutorial for him to go through just to teach him the moves of the snowboard. And it kept going on and on and on and on, and he was like, I'm getting very frustrated. I just want to play the game. And so he could understand why they were taking him through that tutorial, but he was getting very frustrated, very angry. The tutorial wasn't ending. He couldn't skip the tutorial. He had to go through it, and finally he got to play the game. And when he finally got to play the game, he was kind of at a really high frustration level, and he was ready to just stop. But he had just spent $60 on this game. So he was like, I'm going to try it out. So they played for a couple hours, and that was about it. So frustration levels get pretty high pretty quickly. And what ends up happening is they stop playing your game for good. Artificial intelligence plays a role too. AI is a part of the overall experience. AI is not a person, so improving metrics, feedback, competition, the variety of all of these put together is very, very important. Within games, this would be the other characters played by the gamer. So your avatars are very important, the way they look, the way they act within gameplay, how they function. All of this is important, and these are all things that you have to think of. Just by making avatars pretty and really cool looking isn't enough. Some other things that we like to discuss is the player protected from themselves during gameplay? Are there load and save issues? Sid Meier in his keynote was talking about how in Civ 4 players would play the game, save it at a certain point, and then try to play the rest of the game, and if they died, they go back to that saved point. So he said, is this a good thing? Do I want users to be doing this, or is this a bad thing? Then he said, giving choices and options during the settings. Is this a good thing, or is this a bad thing? Choosing your easy level, your middle level, or your difficulty level. Is this good or is this bad? Then he said, are cheat codes good or bad? Do I want my users going online and finding cheat codes to my game? Is modding a good thing? Do I want them to be doing this, or do I want them just to play the game straight through? Well, to be realistic, yes, you want all of these things. And gamers will usually not play a game from beginning to end. Unless they're huge Quest gamers, they play Quest games all the time. They really, really love it. The game's really good. It's really engaging. Otherwise, they're not going to do it. Especially with Grand Theft Auto is a perfect example, and they always bring that up because we always, when Grand Theft Auto comes out, we get the cheat codes right away because it makes the gameplay more fun. Doing all the quests and trying to beat the game, isn't that fun? Getting cheat codes for helicopters and bazookas and things like that, that's more fun. The more stuff that we can blow up, the funner, you know, the more fun. And so that's just not us. That's just a bunch of gamers that we've actually had come in and test games. You know, the more cheat codes, the better. That makes them more engaged in your game, more involved in your game. Some gamers go onto game forums and talk with people and say, how do you get through this level? And they start talking about your game. And now the social media is so huge and Situated Research is into it so much with our web design team, we know that people are talking online about your games. And they're saying good things and they're saying the bad things. So you need to pay attention to that. Like I said, cheat codes are great. As game designers, you want cheat codes. You want your players to look for cheat codes. You want them to find them. You want them to use them because it's going to keep people playing your game. But after playing the game through its entirety, it may be more fun to play with cheats. So eventually you want them to play through your whole game. That's your main goal as a game designer. However, you know, if they start getting cheat codes right away, that just tells you they really like your game and they want to play it more. It motivates them to play longer or to get friends involved. So what should gaming companies be doing? Use the player's imagination to their fullest. Think like the gamer. What worlds do they want to enter and can't in real life? What situations do they want to be in but can't? Society's rules are not placed upon people during gameplay at all. So you have to go with the flow and you have to tap into what the player already knows. You have to listen to the players, what they're really saying. What solutions are they coming up with? What emotions are they showing when they play the game? What personalities are coming out while they play the game? What do they like and dislike? All feedback is very, very important. So now we're going to discuss designing for engagement. So currently, do you design for engagement? Do you design your games for engagement? Most of you will say yes, but the true answer is no. The biggest genre of games that does a good job at this is MMOGs. And we do a lot of collaboration within MMOGs. It's very, very important, and we have to have it. Of course, intellectual property of what we look at is the drawing questions based off of our approach. What are the rules of the gameplay that allow the gamer to become a member of a guild? How do the roles and design within the game allow the guild to win? We look at all these different aspects of an MMOG. And we've worked with leading experts in this world, and we're passionate about collaboration, especially within MMOG games. So they are the future of gaming. So if you are a company that designs MMOG games, definitely contact us because we're heavily involved. Interaction design we talked about a little bit earlier, but basically it's just designing interactive games to support the way people communicate and interact in their gaming worlds and beyond. So we have to create good user experiences. We have to enhance the way we communicate with one another, how we play together, and how we work together. We have to support, not restrict our users. So we have to think in terms of the task, not in terms of the system. And users' mental models show their face here. So we want to use those mental models. We want to use those theories that we talked about earlier. So earlier we talked a little bit about Dr. Sherritt's research. You can view it at his URL here. But basically, designing game affordances to promote learning and engagement was his PhD focus. We looked at affordances, or potentials for action within video gameplay. And we took 3 serious video games, 3 educational games that I talked about earlier, and we found patterns of learning among game players. It showed how the design of in-game visualizations either led to success or failure to learn to use basic game controls. We also found patterns from gathered video data to highlight learning episodes and patterns of interface use. He also looked at patterns of affordance use, so the uptake of a perceived action potential. And remember, action potential is potential for action during collaborative gameplay that revealed relationships among the video game interface and player behavior. And this really gave focus to how an interface design can guide game-player interaction. And we concluded that a proper balance of flow, difficulty, encouraged player engagement and learning. So the transcript showed feelings of frustration within the game interface often that led to players to abandon in-game tasks. However, frustrated goal achievement often led to the renegotiation of in-game strategies. So it was an indication of engagement. So now let's talk about problems with standard usability tests and the RITE method. And before we even get into this, I always have people arguing with us about the RITE method and whatnot. Go to our blog and actually look for the blog post on the RITE method, and you'll see a very intelligent discussion on it and our perspective as well. So definitely check that out. Quantitative studies look at statistical analysis, so they're focusing on numbers. So it requires you to measure variables. The disadvantages to this is that it doesn't measure game behavior, and master's students can conduct these studies with no real impact on a game's design. Now, qualitative studies gathers an in-depth understanding of human behavior and the reasons that govern such behavior. It investigates the why and how of decision making. And we use smaller, more focused groups so that we get more detail-enriched data to give back to our clients. We just don't do that. We also give solutions to problems within gameplay as well. So we do that as well. But we do focus on qualitative studies. And if you go to our website under Usability Research, you'll see all the lists of studies that we can do. And we do quantitative as well, because we do get some clients that do want numbers and they want to be compared to their competition. And so in order to do that, we have to do quantitative. So the RITE method. The RITE method is short for rapid iterative testing and evaluation. And many companies do employ this method without truly understanding it. It was pioneered by Microsoft Game Studio and Microsoft Research, and the benefits was that it was rapid iterative. It was research design that allowed usability researchers to detect problems and inform the game design team immediately, right away. And rounds of this were conducted, and the number of usability problems originally detected go down with each iteration. That's what's supposed to happen. So we challenge the quality of usability problems being found by using the RITE method. Does a rapid and iterative approach dive deep into the user experience to find problems that are not otherwise being found by existing QA teams? Jacob Nielsen puts it best. He says, usability research is to design as quality assurance is to testing. So if you want a good balance within your game design and your game development, incorporate usability research and quality assurance testing. With the RITE method, you should expect more than basic usability testing. This is very important. We're interested in finding basic usability issues. And here at Situated Research, we're more interested in the deeper meaning. We look at a mixed approach if needed and patterns and player motivation, and we go beyond traditional testing. So again, if you go to our blog post, you can read more on the discussion from one of our founders, Dr. Sherritt, on the RITE method, exactly what it is in more detail, and then you'll have some people actually from Microsoft who helped to develop the RITE method, have a good, intelligent conversation with Dr. Sherritt on it. So go ahead and check that out. So what is most important when thinking about developing the next big hit video game? Well, the answer is the players. So if you've gotten anything from today's webinar, I hope you've gotten that. Players range from all ages, from your children having friends over playing a video game to husbands and wives now between the ages of 20 and 40 to grandparents now. You know, I have an elderly grandmother who is in a retirement home, and they have a Wii set up for exercise. all age groups now are playing video games. In the end, the player or the end user is the most important part of the design process. So what do they want to see? How do they want to win levels? How do they want to play the game? What motivates them to keep playing the game? And what attracts them to your game in the first place? And the list goes on and on and on. And the only way you're going to know any of the answers to these questions is if you do usability research. So what can situated research do for you? We like to have a free consultation with your gaming company. So we do one-on-one time, we answer your questions, and we do a presentation to your staff for 1 hour. And this can be done through GoToMeeting. So even though we're located in Chicago, we don't have to travel to your company. We use GoToMeeting all the time. We go over the specifics on our company. You get to learn more about our unique techniques, and this can be done remotely. So if you're interested in that, just contact me. You have my email address, michelle@situatedresearch.com. Also, I want to meet up with people at GDC this year. Every day is booked except for March 7th, and I'm going to be there from 10 a.m. to 8 p.m. So email me if you'd like to meet and talk about what we do here at Situated Research. We'll be the ones running around with the Situated Research t-shirts on. So just check for us. If you see one of us and you want to talk to us and you didn't get a chance to set up a time, just grab us and we'll talk to you and give you a packet of information that we'll have on hand. And if you want to set up a specific meeting, we can do that as well. So just email me. So now we're going to go to Q&A, any questions that you folks have. And every year before GDC, we do this webinar. We update it with the most current information within our field. And we like to do this so that we get people to learn the name of Situated Research, even though we're 4 years in now, people pretty much know who we are. But we like to do this webinar before GDC. So like I said at the beginning, if you guys have any questions, go ahead and type it in your chat box, and we'll get to those in just a second. I'm going to put up our contact info and then go to Q&A. So again, our company is called Situated Research, and we're located in the suburbs of Chicago, Illinois. There's our direct phone number if you want to go ahead and give us a call, and my personal direct email address, as well as our website URL. And again, we will be at GDC next week in San Francisco on March 7th from 10 a.m. to 8 p.m. So contact us. We can have lunch, dinner, breakfast, whatever you want to do. We can meet you in between. And just send me an email, and then we can go ahead and have a meeting, talk to you, give you a packet of information. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and end the webinar. However, I will stop the recording, and then we'll do Q&A. So I want to thank you all for attending today. You've been a great audience. And again, if you want to get together during GDC next week, just send me an email. Thanks so much.